They disowned their daughter for choosing to live with her black partner, unaware of the secret buried beneath her grandfather's land. It began with a slammed door, a storm outside, and a father's final, cutting words. "You're no daughter of mine." She walked into the night carrying only love and defiance, never realizing that the very land they ridiculed would one day bring them to their knees. But the secret hidden on that farm was more than gold. It was a reckoning. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support allows us to share more impactful stories. Now let's continue. They said she was ruining her life the night she brought Malik to dinner. The roast went cold. The chandelier hummed quietly. Her mother's smile froze first. Her father's fork hung mid-air. Emily felt heat rise to her neck but kept her hand resting on Malik's sleeve. "You're not serious," she said. Her father replied, "This is a phase." Malik straightened. "Sir, I mean respect." "Respect?" Her mother cut in. "We raised you better than charity." The words lingered like smoke. A cousin coughed. Someone whispered, "He fixes cars," as if that were a crime. Emily noticed Malik rubbing his thumb along his palm. She nudged his knee under the table. "We're okay," she whispered. She wasn't, not entirely. The room smelled of lemon polish and judgment. The conversation turned sharp in that slow, polite way the wealthy often wield cruelty. Background whispers floated. Scholarships, country clubs, family reputation. Emily tried reason. Then she tried memory. Summer days on the lake, her father teaching her to steer, the time he said, "Trust your hands." He looked away as she finally said, "I love him." The room fractured. A chair screeched. An aunt muttered under her breath. Embarrassment hung in the air. Then her father spoke his verdict. "Choose." Outside, winter air cut into her lungs. Malik's breath formed clouds beside hers. She didn't argue or plead, she simply acted. She packed a small duffel, jeans, a leather journal, and left. A photo of her as a messy-haired 10-year-old perched on her father's shoulders. Her mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You'll regret this," she said, calm, without tears. The street felt unusually loud, tires hissing, a dog barking a couple of houses away. Malik's old hatchback rattled like a tin drum. When the stairlight flickered, he shrugged and said, "It's not much." "It's ours," she replied. The apartment smelled of clean soap and engine oil. On the windowsill, a basil plant leaned toward the streetlight, its leaves drooping. She kicked off her shoes, curled her toes into a worn rug, and laughed once, surprised by the sound. They ate ramen on crates. He handed her the less chipped bowl. She watched steam rise and felt the tight ache in her chest ease slightly. From the hallway, 2 teens passed by, whispering, "Cute couple like a blessing." Before sleep, she wrote one line in her journal. "Love is a doorway. I just walked through." Back at the big house, phones lit up with news of the night's scandal. At Malik's, the radiator clicked, steady and persistent. Far off, thunder rumbled. Emily rested her hand on her journal, as if waiting for the storm to answer a question she had not yet asked. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, casting lines across the wall. The radiator hissed. Emily woke before her alarm, watching dust float in the light. Malik tied his boots, shoulders hunched, hands moving quickly. He kissed her temple. "Back late," he said. She nodded and tucked the blanket around his waist. They learned the cost of love in small ways. Rent and bus passes. Rice stretched with spices from the corner store. Life measured in quiet sacrifices. On Tuesdays, she cleaned offices at dawn, the scent of lemon in her nose, wrists aching as suited workers drifted in and watched. A woman whispered, "She looks familiar," then louder, "Isn't that the Warren girl?" At night, they ate on the fire escape. The city hummed with clanks, sirens, and laughter from 2 floors below. Malik shared stories about his grandparents, seeds kept in a coffee tin, hymns sung in the rain. Emily traced the railing with her fingers and asked about the farm. He looked away. "It's tired land," he said. "Dry as old bread, but it raised me." When the call came, it was quiet. A neighbor's TV murmured in the background. Malik stared at the floor as the nurse spoke. Emily reached for his hand. He squeezed once, then remained still, enveloped in a glassy silence. 2 funerals in 3 days. The church smelled of wax and damp wood. Old friends hugged him in short, awkward bursts. Behind them, someone whispered, "He loved that farm." Another answered, "Mostly weeds now." After the burials, papers arrived. A box tied with a faded ribbon. Deeds, a pencil-drawn map, creases from folding it countless times. A small X marked a spot near the creek. Malik almost smiled, then didn't. Granddad liked his little legends, he said. They drove out on a weary Sunday. The sky was pale blue. Fence posts leaned, the house smaller than she imagined. Paint peeling, porch sagging, chimes tangled. She breathed in cold dirt and something sweet. Maybe apples from a stubborn tree. Inside, light pooled on dust. She opened the windows and the house seemed to exhale. They cleaned in sections, one song per room. Emily wore Malik's grandmother's apron, embroidered with tiny violets. Malik moved slowly, trailing his hand along the walls. In the barn, they discovered jars of nails, a coat hook, and a faded sign that read, "Please close gate." A neighbor passed by on a four-wheeler, lifting 2 fingers in greeting. Gossip traveled fast. By noon, the clerk at the only store had already heard. "City kids," someone muttered. "Give them a week." That night they slept on a single mattress, listening to coyotes. Emily wrote by flashlight, the pen scratching across pages. She listed repairs like prayers: roof, pump, fences, savings, thin patience growing thicker than yesterday. She paused, touching her belly, startled by the gesture. She closed the journal and lay in the quiet as the house settled around them. The next morning she followed the map to the creek, boots wet with dew. Malik walked the fence line, counting posts. Emily knelt at the X marked on the map and brushed away leaves. All she found was a flat stone and a circle of rusted bottle caps. She laughed and pocketed one for luck. They didn't find answers. They found work, and in that stubborn, honest labor they began to change. The first hint came in a metallic scent, faint but sharp, cutting through the damp soil. Malik was fixing the old pump by the barn, his wrench slick with oil, when the ground beneath his boot gave slightly. A hollow sound. He frowned, tapped the wrench again, and heard it a second time. Emily leaned over the fence, brushing straw from her hair. "What is it?" He knelt, fingers tracing the edges of something solid beneath the dirt. A box iron, maybe, or maybe hope. The lock was rusted shut. They pried it open with a screwdriver and quiet determination. Inside, wrapped in waxed cloth, lay folded papers stamped with a logo: Fleming Mining Co., 1943, leases, signatures, and a hand-drawn diagram of veins running beneath their land. Emily's voice fell to a whisper. "Is this real?" Malik stared at the seal, his grandfather's name written in looping ink. "He knew," he said quietly as the wind. The following days passed in a blur. Phone calls, dusty records at the county office, an old lawyer recalling his grandfather's stubbornness. Beneath the farm stretched a vein of gold, abandoned during a company dispute. The rights had never been sold. Ownership had passed down quietly, faithfully. That night Emily couldn't sleep. The old walls seemed to hum as if remembering. She thought of every sneer, every whispered pity. Malik sat by the table, the lamp casting a warm gold glow across his face. "We could lose everything chasing it," he said. She smiled. "Or we could lose nothing and still be broke." They began cautiously, leasing survey equipment, talking to prospectors, chasing doubt with coffee. The first test samples glimmered faintly in the light, tiny flecks dancing in the pan. Malik's hands shook. "It's there," he said. The months that followed were slow, deliberate, almost reverent. They registered Turner Mining Co. in a borrowed office, a folding table and a laptop between them. Malik worked from dawn to dusk, sweat running down his back, while Emily managed papers and paychecks, the smell of ink and metal always around her. One morning, the local radio reported, "New operation revives old land in Edge County." They stood outside, sunlight cutting through fog. Emily pressed her hand to her stomach, smiling at the secret growing there. By winter, drills traced the earth's heartbeat. Gold dust cotton filters, small at first, then steady. Malik bought new boots and left the price tag dangling for a week, laughing. The town that once called them reckless now addressed him with respect. One evening they stood at the creek. The water shone amber in the dusk. Malik lifted a nugget, his palm trembling. "For them," he said, thinking of his grandparents. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "For us too." The air smelled of rain and new beginnings. In the distance, thunder rolled, not as warning but applause. By spring, the story had reached unexpected places. News anchors smiled through polished teeth. "Local couple strikes gold," literally. Emily's maiden name appeared in headlines like a ghost she thought she had buried. At first, she laughed. Then came the letters, old friends checking in, invitations to charity galas that once felt out of reach. And then her parents arrived, without warning. A black sedan rolled slowly down the dirt road, its windows tinted against the sun over the farm. Malik noticed them first through the kitchen window. The same hands that once shook over rent were now steady around a mug. He said nothing, just nodded toward the driveway. Emily froze mid-step, her heartbeat loud enough to shake the table. The doorbell rang, absurdly polite against a backdrop of tractors and cicadas. When she opened it, her mother stood on the porch in pearls, eyes red-rimmed but resolute. Her father's face had grown grayer, his posture bent under a weight heavier than age. "Emily," her mother began, her voice cracking on the name. "We saw the news." You disowned me," Emily said, soft but sharp. Her father sighed. "We were wrong about him, about everything." His eyes flicked toward Malik, who lingered in the background, wiping his hands with a rag. "You've built something incredible." "We're proud of you." The words landed awkwardly between them, too clean, too rehearsed. Emily looked past them to the car, where her father's cufflinks glinted like tiny suns. "You didn't come for pride," she said. "You came because it's safe now." Silence. Then softer, her mother spoke. "We miss our daughter." Emily's throat tightened, but she didn't let tears win. "You missed her when she was hungry too. You just didn't look." They left after an hour of brittle conversation and untouched tea. Malik didn't say much. That night he wrapped an arm around her shoulders as they sat on the porch, watching stars slide across the dark sky. The air smelled of iron and hay. She leaned against him. "I thought I wanted them to see this," she murmured. "Now I just want peace," he kissed her hair. "Then that's what we'll keep. But forgiveness has its own timing." Months passed. The baby kicked stronger. Letters arrived again, shorter, less proud, more human. Her father wrote of selling the company, sleepless nights, and wondering if he'd still be welcome without money or apologies prepared in advance. When Emily went into labor, rain hammered the roof like a drum. Malik drove through mud, headlights slicing through the darkness. The nurse smiled at the couple who couldn't stop holding hands. Hours later, a baby's cry filled the room. Emily whispered, "Eli." And Malik nodded, tears streaking his jawline unnoticed. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the crib. A knock sounded. Malik opened the door to find her parents again. Rain on their coats, no pearls, no polished car, just them. Her father held a small blue blanket. Her mother's hands trembled. "May we see him?" she asked. Emily hesitated, then nodded. The older woman bent low, her face softening as the baby cooed. Her father whispered, "He's perfect." No one spoke for a long while. The monitors hummed like a hymn. Emily reached out and took her mother's hand. For the first time in years, it felt warm. The farm seemed different now. Rows of young oaks lined the driveway, and the porch creaked under the weight of laughter instead of regret. 6 months had passed since that quiet hospital morning, and the air carried a softness that once felt impossible. Malik had built a small swing from an oak branch. Emily spent most afternoons there, baby Eli in her arms, surrounded by the smell of cut grass and warm soil. Her parents visited often, no chauffeur, no polished speeches, just two humbled people learning to be family again. Her father spent hours helping Malik mend the fences he once dismissed as useless wood, sweat streaking his crisp white shirt. Her mother brought pies and apologies, one slice at a time. Neighbors stopped calling Malik that boy and began calling him Mr. Turner. Drivers waved as trucks passed. Gossip still floated through the store aisles about the gold, about how Emily had chosen right. But now it came with awe, not disdain. Emily only smiled. She no longer needed their validation. One evening, as sunset painted the fields bronze, she watched Malik walk back from the mine entrance, shirt streaked with dust, light catching his hair. He waved with the same shy half-smile that started it all. She whispered, "We made it." And Eli gurgled in her arms as if he understood. Later the family gathered for dinner under the wide oak. The table was mismatched wood, but laughter was new and alive. Her father raised his glass, not to wealth or land, but to the courage that built them. "To love," he said quietly, "and to second chances," Malik added. Emily looked around at the faces once fractured by pride, now bound by something stronger. As the sun set and cicadas filled the air, the gold beneath their feet gleamed unseen, but it didn't matter. The real treasure sat above it, their peace, their forgiveness, their future. In the end, it wasn't gold that made them rich. It was love, stubborn, defiant, alive enough to turn pain into legacy. Sometimes love digs deeper than hate ever could. What they buried in shame, destiny unearthed in gold. If this story moved you, don't just scroll, share it. Someone out there needs to be reminded that real wealth isn't in what we own, but in who stands beside us when the world turns.